Hello.
Like,
You doing your mic there? Well, while Sam is fixing his mic, doing his technical things. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 5th annual State of New England Hip Hop panel. I'm Amelia Mason. I'm an arts and culture reporter at WBUR. But this panel is actually the brainchild of Sam Nielsen here. I may have gestured in the wrong direction. I can't really tell. I don't know, directions. Sam's the host and creator of LFOD Radio. It's a radio show and podcast focused on the New England hip hop scene. And this is the second time LFOD and BUR have teamed up to do this panel. We did one last year at City Space, a real physical location in the world. And we had a great conversation with a bunch of local folks. We talked, the business of hip hop and the politics of hip hop and Boston's relationship with the genre. And we're very excited to do it again. And we're really happy we figured out how to do it virtually. So I'm introducing Sam Nielsen here of LFOD Radio. Hello, Sam. How's it going?
I can't take full credit for the state of NEHH. That was actually a tree over at the College Blueprint at BU. They started it, and then that station shut down, and they passed it to us, and we've definitely carried the torch for the past. This will be our 5th year doing it. So.
All right. Well, I clearly didn't check my facts, and I am a professional. So, oops. But now you know. Before we start talking about the actual subject matter, Sam, I'm hoping you could just give our audience kind of a quick and dirty history of the event, at least since you've sort of taken hold of it. What sort of inspired it? How has it evolved over the years?
Yeah. So originally, it grew out of just conversations that were happening naturally. So when we had it, we've been on 91.5 FM in Boston for a little bit longer than we've been doing this. And so we brought it on and we split it into 2 parts. We'd have some industry guys up first, and we kind of talk about how things look from their end. Then we'd bring in some artists the next week to respond and build on that. And the whole goal, as I've seen it, has been to take these behind the scenes conversations that are happening, whether people know it or not, and kind of bring them to the forefront so that everyone can get involved in it and everyone can kind of know what's taking place and we can grow as a scene. So we did it that way a few years, and then I reached out to you after you included me in your article about Boston's relationship with hip hop. And it was awesome doing it with everyone together last year on the stage and really getting into the combo. So I'm looking forward to continuing that energy this year because everyone's got different viewpoints on it, but I think it's important to have these convos out in the open because I'm not taking credit for it, but when we first started, it was very basic stuff like, if you're reaching out to a publication, say hello, include your name, where you're from, stuff like that. And in the years since, we've had to talk about that less and less, and it's become, there's really a foundation to build off, and it's definitely grown into a more advanced conversation, which has been real nice.
Right. Starting out as sort of a resource and evolving as people learn. Yeah, I think that's one of the things about like local music scenes. There's all these conversations happening sort of in little pockets everywhere. And the cool thing about this is you're just sort of like putting everyone on the stage or a virtual stage and being like, let's have it all out here.
Yep.
So, we're going to talk about the panelists that we have coming up who are all really awesome and smart, are going to talk about this. But I was curious for your thoughts, just what was your impression of like New England and Boston area hip hop this past year?
I honestly felt great about it. It was wild because we all had this feeling like this summer was going to be nuts, like so much going into it. And we already knew like what was going to come. And I think a lot of people are disappointed because we couldn't do quite as much as we thought at the time. But if you really look at how the city did, how the region did as a whole, there's too many people to name, but I mean, just a few examples. Bia had massive records this year. Smoke Bulger just got signed to MMG a week and a half or so ago. Zaza went viral. Shooter's Music had a crazy year. Millie's hit a whole other gear entirely. There's been a lot of, it seems like the scene has been more cohesive. I know we're on Twitter a lot, and it seems like we're seeing more people jumping in and being part of convos together and pushing each other. It just really feels like there's still a buzz around it. People don't seem defeated. They seem like they're just putting out content, videos, podcasts, songs. Shao Van Buren, they've been dropping a ton of videos. It feels good from where I'm at.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting to see people have to, I mean, everyone's had to pivot. Every musician in the city, everywhere really, has had to figure out a way to keep their audience engaged and to be creative as well. But it has been, yeah, I mean, it's been cool to see people online, just like, you know, obviously we find music there, so it's not like it went away. But it's still, you know, obviously disappointing. You know, before we jump into the conversation, can you talk a little bit about like what people tuning in should expect from this? Because I think it's a pretty broad topic. It could kind of, you know, attack things different ways.
Yeah. So I would expect an educational, first and foremost, conversation. If you didn't know what the state was, you're going to find out. It's going to be definitely more. We have some great artists with us tonight, but it's going to be a little bit more behind the scenes, talking about the environment, giving folks a framework to understand how to navigate it. We're going to be talking about systemic problems, challenges, just really bring stuff into a public convo where we all have the tools to move forward together through it. And I want to say a lot of it is going to be Boston centric, but that doesn't mean that it's not applicable to any scene anywhere, wherever you're at making music. And there are a lot of people doing great work in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Connecticut, Rhode Island, all over New England. But just how things are in New England, it's always going to have to come through Boston. So that's why you're going to hear a lot of Boston talk. But it's not to downplay anything that's happening around there as well.
Yeah. Well, before we actually start that conversation, I do want to give a shout out to our community partners, Boston Compass newspaper, Newbury Comics, and the Record Company. Very cool organizations right here, doing really great work. We'll also be using an interactive platform called Slido to take your questions. Anybody can submit a question. You don't need to download anything. You go to slido.com on your web browser, whatever device you're using, enter the code #NewEnglandHipHop, no punctuation. Submit your questions anytime through the conversation, and then at the end we'll address a bunch of them. So I guess without further ado, Sam can introduce our wonderful panelists.
All right. So thank you, Amelia, by the way, for all your help with this. I don't think that should be lost, that you and Ari have really helped us take this to another level. So I appreciate that.
Shout out to Ari, who's not visible, but is doing a lot behind the scenes right now.
Yeah. As is a lot of these folks tonight are folks who might not be visible, but are making things happen. So our panel tonight, going in alphabetical order, we have Brandie Blaze. She is a rapper and activist. She started in the battle scene before refining her brand of trap feminism, which you can hear on her latest album, Late Bloomer, which is out now. You can tap in with her at Brandie Blaze on Twitter and Instagram. We have Brandon Matthews, aka Bedlam. He's a guerrilla marketing pro who works with Showoff Records, Killer Boombox, and many other artists, labels, and companies. At Bedlam_Showoff is where you can find him. CAEV, a versatile artist from Boston, regularly popping up with new sounds. He dropped a number of videos this year, including Dusted Off, High Is My Fashion, and Free Bory. You can find him at KVman617 on Twitter, at CAEV_ on Instagram. That's CAEV. And then finally, last but not least, Jessica Richards. She's a manager for Latrell James. You can get her. She is, and if you missed last year, tune in. We're going to get into some of the stuff she talked about last year, but Jess always has a refreshing perspective on things. You can tap in with her on the internet at @just_JRich. I'm ready to bring them on when you are, Ari. I'm going to move my camera a little bit, see if I can get in focus. That feels better. What's happening, y'all? I can't hear you.
Hey, y'all can hear me?
Okay, let's go down the line, and if you guys one by one want to introduce yourselves, and that'll be a mic check as well. Can't hear you, Brandie.
Can't hear you.
There we go.
We can hear you.
There we go. Hi, my name is Brandie Blaze. I'm a rapper from Dorchester, Mass.
Hey, y'all can hear me?
Yeah, we can.
My name is CAEV. I'm from Dorchester. I'm a rapper, artist. I do a bunch of things.
I hope you can hear them.
Hi, my name is Jess. I work with Latrell James. I'm actually from Brockton, Mass. And Brandon's just looking at the screen angry.
Oh, my bad. I'm trying to get my mute off. Brandon Matthews, co-founder of Showoff Marketing and KillerBoombox.com, Boston, Mass.
I feel like I should clarify, this is water, not a giant orange juice.
Oh, this is tequila and orange juice.
Oh, the tequila's in the other glass. All right, y'all. So let's get into it. I've got a bunch of questions. I think you heard my intro, so you kind of know what the goal is here. Obviously, COVID happened. A lot of things took place this year that changed. We know that shows, as we formerly knew them, are on pause, but eventually we're going to go back. What I'm curious is, what changes do y'all think might be here to stay? Like, how is this going to impact the industry in the longer term? And maybe we can start with the industry folks first and then circle back to the artists. So Jess, if you want to kick it off.
I guess what changes are going to be here to stay? Well, I guess we still don't know what venues are going to look like in terms of like how many people are going to be able to be in those positions, and they're already hurting as well. So I don't know. I think that there's still a lot of questions up in the air for us to kind of figure out before we move forward. I know from my standpoint, like we were supposed to do a show in May, and I think I was still in denial about COVID. So I'm like, oh yeah, it's gonna be gone in a month, and it wasn't. And then to see some of the venues kind of shut down one after one, I think is still in denial process, because there were really beloved venues that unfortunately got shut down or moved. So I don't know. I think it's still just really hard to say, like, because we still don't know the logistics or the legal aspect of having people in venues right now.
I think that the biggest changes with it, and what people really need to understand, is that people's consumption of content has now changed. Yeah. Before, people wouldn't have considered doing listening parties online or concerts online or a whole bunch of other things, and they've kind of had to. And now it's gotten so popular to the point that these companies are now formulating ways to, do ticket sales and to, change audio drivers so things sound better for performances and all that, because I think they do know and understand that a lot of venues may not bounce back, and things are still so uncertain regarding insurance companies and so many other things that we may not go back to traditional shows for a while. So I think that we do have to think, future. And then also, because people have really raised the bar in 2020 with having to find ways to still get in front of audiences, I think people are going to be expecting, bigger experiences going forward as well. I don't think you can really just kind of like halfway do it anymore. You got to really be there visually, there creatively, or just find some way to get someone to really tune in, because we really are consuming on our phones more than we ever have.
Yeah.
Then whichever one of you guys wants to pick it up first.
Right, you got it.
Okay, I definitely agree with Bedlam. I think that streaming is definitely going to be something that stays for a very long time, just because even when we're able to be back in person, just like being able to stream shows so that people all over the world could see you at the same time. And then also the things that you can do when you're pre-recording that you can't do live. Like I always talk about Megan Thee Stallion's BET performance, and I feel like I want to hang off, some scaffolding. I can't do that in nobody's venue, but now I could do that if I pre-record. I could do a lot of crazy different things. So I think that that's just going to be incorporated into live shows. Like how that's going to work, I don't know, but I think we're going to be streaming forever.
Yeah, facts. I think one thing that's definitely gonna stay is like the whole bedroom approach. Like that. I feel like now like audiences are getting like a real window into like their favorite artists' like life and their personality. I feel like that's gonna be like a thing that's really gonna stick. Like for example, Buddy, for example, like he's a street rapper, right? But you see on his Twitter, he's like, it's me, it's him, blah, blah, blah. You feel me? He has real character to his thing. I feel like that's what people are attracted to right now. People really want to like see their favorite person, like, and really like be there with them almost like, and like, it's kind of like, we always have our phones, it's like almost super invasive, but like, hey, we selling ourselves, we put ourselves out there. So I feel like the people, with personalities, what I'm saying, not just the looks anymore, you feel me? Never mind just the image. You got to have the talk to go with it too. You got to have the walk to go with it and all that shit too. So I feel like that's definitely going to stick because with the whole pandemic, we have people just super putting themselves out there. You feel me? And it's awesome. It's like a new frontier, honestly. So it's kind of, I don't really actually know. It's just like, it's like the wild, wild west right now. Like everyone's just like shooting at the board, seeing what works. And it's fire to me. Like it's mad exciting for me as an artist to try to like see what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, his Twitter's hilarious too.
Yeah, Buddy, right? Buddy's funny.
Yeah, we'll stick with you, CAEV, because I have a question for you and Brandie.
Yeah.
If you want to kick this. So specifically, artists have adapted in a lot of ways. I'm curious what you've seen working for you. And also on the flip side, maybe something you thought was going to work. That you tried and then you found out, oh no, that's not gonna work for me. That's
for me, on my side of things, for me, honestly, believe it or not, it's a lot of like just hard work and good luck. Because for me, I just been like, yo, I'm just gonna work really hard and like what's meant for me will come to me, and like that's just kind of how it's been working. Like I kind of like this. I really don't be having plans as much as crazy as it would look like I have plans. I do. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna work really hard, and then like whatever's gonna come to me. And that's how I started working with J&P because like we knew each other for years, but like after I dropped Sneak This, he was like, yo, I think it's time for you to do this. And I just be in the cut making music and focus on just being the best artist I can be. Like that's why I'm like, I don't know how I got here. I'm like, yeah, I just trying to make my music and do my thing. So that's really my plan. I just like try to just be the best I can be, like just like just try to top myself every day because like that's all it's about at the end of the day as an artist for me. Because it's like I know my part in the team. Like my part is to make the music that people can move to, and I have a team around me that can do what they're supposed to do. You feel me? Get it to that person, shoot a video there. Honestly, I think having a great team is probably like the biggest thing you can have on your side as an artist. Just having a really great team who's working towards all you guys' goals. You guys understand each other's role in the will and get that thing moving really, because that's what it's about. Because like I really don't think about shit like I really don't think about stuff like that. I just like, yo, I'm gonna make this music and that's it really.
That's dope.
Yeah, man.
I think what's different for me is that I think my mind is just very much more open to what I can do as an artist. I think before the pandemic hit, I was always an artist that really grew based off live performances. And I didn't really have to worry about a lot of backgrounds and light changes and this or that. It was just like, yo, just throw me and DJ Ysham up there and we gonna do what we do. And now it's like, because we're over the computer, I don't feel like my energy translates the same way as it did when you were right there with me. So just really expanding my mind into what I could do. Like a perfect example is the show that I did with ART at Oberon with myself and Jimale and Keovani. And it was just like, it was incredibly beautiful, but also it was just kind of like our director was Black Woman Summer. Shout out to Summer, shout out to the whole ART team. But it was just kind of like, I want them to break out a glass box. And I'm like, okay, sure. let's do it, right? And they built the whole glass box, and then I had to like bust it open. That's something I don't think I ever would have done before, and it came out like spectacular. So now it's making me think. I'm working on my third album now. So now I think of my album, instead of thinking about it just sonically, I think about my album visually now and the way that I'm going to present it, because it's going to be completely different than anything that I've ever done. And it has to be that way because it has to transition visually and sonically. I can't just rely on sonically anymore.
That yeah, 1 sec. So we have a question from the audience already. Somebody has hit us with something fire. So, and if anybody at home wants to leave a question, we love having y'all with us. Shout out to everyone tuned in, building and learning. Reach out to any of us after as well, by the way. All right. So what are some other revenue streams for independent artists now that venues are closed and live streams can get redundant?
Merch. Sell that merch, hustle. Sell that merch, hustle. If you got two people who will buy $25, you got $50 right there, hustle. Now they see people with your shirt on, now more people in your shirt. Get that merch out, hustle. That's what that is. Straight up hustle. We all from the Northeast, you feel me? We all know that hustler's mentality. Hustle, sell that merch. Like literally, you got a fan base, you got a core fan base, move from there. Just hustle, get that off. Because someone's gonna buy your stuff. Someone's gonna buy your stuff regardless, and it's just gonna spread like that. Organic growth is the best growth to me. That's like the best growth. Like,
on that note, my outfit is entirely merch sent to me by artists. Shout out to Tony. Those minds don't get bread, and status the artist on the hoodie. So yeah.
I will also say that like licensing, I think people really just don't take the opportunity for that. Like licensing makes so much money. Like if you break it down from podcasts, people need music for that. People need music for YouTube videos. Like the amount of filmmakers in the world that want like some kind of like licensing for music that they need for their videos, like the abundance of people that do that, like Music Bed, Epidemic Sound, like Artlist, like those are all music licensing companies that like generate income for independent artists. Like there's just so many like music licensing companies out there that you could work with that generate like money literally like while you're sleeping. So I think it's just really good for people to venture out to those areas. I mean, I will say for like Latrell, like this was probably his most successful year doing nothing. And that was just from licensing. So, I mean, like I would definitely take advantage of them or reach out to those platforms or try to figure out a window to try to get through those, because right now with the licensing boom and independent artists, like it's just a really, really good lane for artists to be in right now, especially if you're independent.
Oh yeah, I agree 1,000%.
I think something that comes into play now that people can use as a revenue stream is, perfecting the online experience, and now, doing, ticketed, online concerts. This is the thing that there's probably 10 different apps, Zoom included now, where they're doing ticketing platforms online for you to sell experiences. And now, because there's so much software that you can use between OBS and so many different things that can really raise your visual presence, and you can literally run an entire production from your bedroom now. So, essentially that's something, if you, do the right marketing and have built your audience the right way, those are small shows that could end up turning into consistent money.
I think for me, I've been making money off shows. So I would say obviously it's not as frequent, but I think a lot of the venues are starting to try to get back up into streaming. So, and they're willing to pay what you're worth. So I've been able to still make money doing that. And I also agree with the merch as well. But I would say probably think outside the box. Like, yes, everyone have t-shirts. T-shirts are great. I wear t-shirt every day. But what else do you have that no one else have? Like really start to think outside the box. And also writing, like not just licensing, but you might be able to get a couple little quick coins ghostwriting. Lots of people need ghostwriters. So you can get a quick coin doing that too.
Absolutely. I appreciate the gems, y'all. So we're gonna get back in here. And to be clear, if you guys you don't have to feel like you have to answer everything if you don't want to. I'm curious if there's been, just last COVID question, I promise. What is, second to last, has there been a silver lining for you this year? One change that you've made that like you're personally happy about, where this actually pushed you in a direction that you're happy you went in?
I think what Cave said earlier was spot on, and I also support what you're doing right now. But regardless, regardless, I know that's not a word, but regardless, I think it just turned everybody into like hustling. Like, what areas am I not doing well in? Like, these people are doing this. Like, I got to step up and do this. Like, this is my weak spot. I got to fix that. Like, I think that COVID, even though it sucked for everyone, it did highlight things that people need to improve on, whether that's you need to hustle more to get more money, or you need to get better merch so you could sell more merch, because right now you're not getting any other stream of income, or you have to think more about your live shows because you need to sell more tickets. Like, I think that really pushed people into a more creative mode of those that didn't really not care about that aspect, but got kind of complacent in just kind of the usual redemption of like the whole artistic element of stuff. So I think if anything, I think it really just pushed people out of their boxes. And I, you can't fault situations for pushing you into like a better artist or a better manager or, a better marketing expert. Like, I think it just generally helped people in the end.
I think I collaborated more, which is really ironic because you're so far away from people, but I actually worked with people more. I've never really been one to do features like that, even though I'm most known for a feature, which is really ironic, but I've done like a lot of features. I have a lot of features on this album I'm working on, and I don't think that would have happened if I wasn't really so just contained and like, I also just was able to go through my emails and really digest songs that people were sending me instead of having to be like, when you're on the go all the time, it might be like, yo, I heard the song once, that's a dub. No, I'm not doing a verse, but I think I got to sit with things a lot more and a lot longer. And I think it just brought more creativity from me because I couldn't go nowhere. I couldn't do anything.
I know on the service side of things, it was definitely, it was a rough year because I'm primarily known for doing a lot of like in-person activations, having a guerrilla marketing company. So then to now find ways to, not have to go and touch people and talk to people as much was definitely a challenge, but it gave me a lot of downtime to completely learn production in the digital space and what the technologies were going forward. So I think that was just like a big preparation for me for things going in the next few years. And learning like what technologies are being developed and like what AR technology is getting ready to do for the concert space and for the event space, and what technologies for event share and just like all these things that are being created that we weren't even thinking about using a year ago. And now it's like we have to be thinking about so many other ways to reach audiences. But then even on the other service side of things, I launched consulting this year because a lot of people kind of were at a standstill as to how to get their music out. As streaming, pretty much got way bigger on not only just the Spotify streaming platform side, but even on radio. Radio got really crazy because people were in front of it, and a lot of people weren't really realizing that they didn't have the opportunity to just go to the club and talk to the DJ, or they didn't have the opportunity to just go to this place to go and find this person. So it's like, now how do I find my way to get through all the multitude of emails and everything else that are going at these people so that I can be heard as well? So it's been a learning year this year for sure.
For me, personally, as I would say I became more positive during this whole pandemic stuff. Because at a point it got like really like low, and I was like, you know what, like blind positivity, man, because that's all we got right now. So I was like, and then I feel like that way kind of taught me how to like celebrate my pain. So like that's like music, like how my fashion got made, like. So I was more just celebrating my pain because I feel like I just became more like reflective as a person because we're just sitting in the house. I literally just had have like a body size mirror in the crib. I'm making songs and I make songs in my kitchen. So I'm making songs looking in the mirror and stuff, and it was getting deep. And I was just like, yo, like the only thing that really matters is like love and positivity at this point. So I'm like, yo, I'm gonna follow on that stuff and just keep riding that way. And I feel like that's been working for me as an artist. Like, yeah. Really.
Yeah, we gotta shout out to Anson Raps. He had the 360 camera. Like, 3 or 4 years ago, I think. So,
Yeah.
So on the flip side of that, and maybe you have something, maybe you don't, but we want to be, people are getting some good, like positive gems. But if we could save somebody a mistake that you made, was there something you thought was going to be a wave this year that you started doing and you caught yourself, you said, I need to stop doing that like now?
I would say, I think in the beginning, like doing different, like when COVID was, I guess, quote unquote, not fun, but like quarantine was so new and everybody was having fun going on live.
Phase two is lit. Phase two is lit.
Fun. Everyone was doing like live streams, and I'm like, you know, why don't we just do live streams? But then you realize like there's just so many people doing the same thing that might not be the wave right now because everyone thinks it's fun. They're trying to do different things. So maybe we just play the background and just kind of see what happens. And lo and behold, we've been here for almost a year. So so I think that sometimes you just got to see how like things progress a little bit.
I would say save it for something good, like releasing something, a new concept. That's like you have something really special that you could show during the live stream. You're premiering something, or a venue giving you a bag. If it's not one of those three things, it's not really worth it.
Yeah, facts. I agree.
Word. So we've been kind of dancing around this a little bit, but audiences have definitely been affected by the way things are now. So we'll start with the artists. Ladies first, of course. I'm curious about how you're interacting with your existing fans and how you're reaching new ones.
I think just if people follow me on social media, I think that people probably think I'm insane, but I just like to crack a lot of jokes and things like that. So I feel like people see my personality more than on stage. On stage, I'm very, very aggressive, and off stage, I'm very goofy and silly. I like to crack jokes and say like really wild, crazy things that I know are funny. Like I don't want to offend anybody, but like funny stuff. So I think that that's been a good way to build new people. But then also, I really got like a huge alley-oop when I got picked to be in the Jubilee video. It was a huge alley-oop that I got like off of, I don't know if it was like Jesus guided their Google search or how they found me, but it was a huge alley-oop. And I was exposed to a lot of new people, not even primarily by my music, but primarily because of my personality and the way that I talk about music and feminism and things like that, that make people want to be like, hey, I should go listen to her music. So it's just kind of like what everyone else has said, just like, yo, that personality, cult of personality, where if people really like you, they'll be like, oh, you rap too? Let me listen to your music. And then hopefully, you know, you're not trash. So then they'll be like, oh, okay, I rock with the music too. I rock with them as a person.
For me, reaching a new audience, I could say I probably need to do better on like hopping on socials and trying to like get new fans like that. I'd honestly say I should be probably more presence online, but I don't know. For me, at the beginning of the year, we dropped the Dustin Off video, and that got me like 500, 600 new followers across like all the ones. It kind of took off. That came from fostering a relationship that I had with Alex Cyber. I knew Alex Cyber for like 5-6 years. First time he met me, I was living in my grandmother's living room, and he came over to listen to my music. He said, oh yeah, this sounds really interesting, but it just feels like a lot of it feels unfinished. The next time I picked him up, it's like 5 years later. I'm driving him in my new Benz, and we in California. We going to ice cream. We listening to some music, and it's like, oh, yo, you got better, and you doing good for yourself. And I feel like that's just kind of been my thing. I kind of been playing the back doors and being like, yo, like I'm about to like, I don't do lines, so like my whole attitude is like I'm about to cut the line. Like I'm about to figure out who does this and who does that. I'm gonna figure out what goes there, and plug the pieces together. Because like I don't know, like I'm ready to go. So like, I just try to figure things out like that. So like I'm working with JMP. We got a lot of cool things planned up, and like so like I don't know. I just kind of been like really I've been stacking like music in the back. So I feel like I probably could do better on reaching out online, but like I don't know. I feel like kind of my whole image is a lack of image. I kind of want to be more of like a presence more than like I want to be felt more than I'm seen. I know that's kind of backwards, like with everything that's going on, but like sometimes I feel you gotta find a way like just stick out a little bit. Sometimes you gotta go against the grain, and like that's kind of been my character. Like if you know me growing, like just growing up in the Boston scene, like I've always been that kid who went against the grain. So like I just been sticking with what works for me, honestly. So that's I probably just need to. I want to get on the social media shit. I need to get up better with that. I be looking at y'all. Y'all be doing that bad good. Y'all, like I be trying to put my personality out there. But like, yo, like I'm not doing this shit, man. Like I get lost, man.
Word. Brandon, what about like marketing strategies? How have you seen those change with this in mind?
Oh man, yeah, it's been crazy. You know, everything had to change really, really fast, and people had to really be on their toes this year in regards to how fast things, you know, move, because, you know, going back to beginning of the year, we weren't talking about Twitch as much. We weren't even thinking about Clubhouse. You know, obviously it wasn't here until summer. You know, there was a bunch of other things that hadn't really presented themselves. We still were kind of still getting into the Zoom mode and stuff like that. So for me, it was really about, again, going back to learning the digital trends and kind of seeing where people were and finding ways to get, you know, really in my clients in front of the, you know, those places that people really were paying attention to, because, you know, so many different platforms grew in their numbers this year because content was consumed so much faster. You know, myself, you know, primarily I do mostly record promotion, so I pay a lot more attention to radio and things like that. So that for me was a really strong place to really have to pay attention to, because without the option of really going to radio stations and being able to move in the traditional sense, I had to be really scheduled, and, you know, I had to really find ways to get, you know, time from people, because, you know, right now we're dealing with so much in the world, so it's hard to go and just sit and introduce a new artist or go and do things in the same fashion. It really was a lot of kind of being on my toes a lot from my clients, and really trying to give them a lot of time, because since we were all kind of learning this, and, you know, typically in a lot of scenarios, they're relying on me for a lot of things. So because I was also learning at the same time a lot this year, it was really just a lot of communication and just a lot of scheduling for a lot of things.
Jess, anything you'd like to add?
I think for me personally, and I always stress this enough, and I understand like Cave's standpoint, of course, because like Latrell hates social media, but at the same time, like, I know that for us, it's been really, really beneficial just to be able to answer, like we answer every single DM, we answer every single, like if somebody mentions him, like we always answer it. And I feel like that has been really beneficial for us, because it's just grown a stronger fan base. And when those people see that you actually took time out to at least have a convo with them, like, you know, you'll be actually quite interested to know that people have really, you know, they really like your music, like they've given your music to other people, like just from having small conversations like that. And they feel like they have some kind of formal connection with you. So when they come back again, when you release something, you know, this time they, you know, they'll come back with a different story about how they shared your music with X, Y, and Z, because, you know, you're such a great person. Like that stuff starts to boomerang back consistently. And, you know, if you're able to open up your app and like search Twitter, then you're able to at least say hi to someone that's likes your music or listen to your music. And that's just the kind of way that we look at things, because, you know, it just, for me, like the payoff just garnishes way more than just kind of just saying thanks, whatever. Especially if we share the music on like Instagram, IG story or whatever, like instead of just sharing it, like say something to someone so they can take ownership of that post. You know, when you just share it, it's just like, you know, it's just a sharing. So you just posted it, they shared it, there's no connection. But when you put when you put a statement there, it's yours. Like you feel like you have some kind of stake in that artist. So for me, like that is just important. Customer service, like I'm big on that. Like you don't want to go into the store and not be told hi. So, you know, you have to think the same way as an artist when somebody reaches out to you.
Facts.
Word. And then shout out to Billy Dean Thomas. Takeovers on other artist platforms has been working out for them. So
yeah,
something to think about. Right now we're taking over WBUR. What's up? So we have a question from the audience as well, Ari said. How do you suggest proper virtual networking besides Clubhouse, I guess?
I don't know. It depends, because I think if you have other talents, it's a little easier because you're able to display those talents and garner some kind of connection with them. I mean, for production wise, like that's it's been really, really beneficial for Latrell during this time. I think Brandie touched upon that artists now have time to really go through their emails, really connect with other artists and be like, well, I remember this person sent me this. I don't really remember, but now I can put two and two together and have a conversation because I have time to. So, I mean, I guess it just depends. Like it's a weird era unless somebody's inviting you onto their IG live or something like that. But if you have various other talents, it's kind of a little bit more easier to kind of, I guess, reach out to new people.
I think it depends on what you're looking for. Like if you're an artist, it's a lot easier to get in touch with DJs right now because a lot of them do live streams, especially the DJs out here. You have someone like Jeff 2 Times on IG Live every Sunday. It's real easy to hop on there and spit some bars. And then you have his attention. If you're good, you have everyone else's attention that's watching. A lot of other DJs do that thing. It's easy to slide in their DMs and say, hey, I'm a fan of yours. I would love to send you some music if possible, but obviously make sure it's correct because don't send them, something fire and then you don't have no radio edit because then they're going to be looking at you crazy. So, it really depends on what you're looking for. Like if you're looking to collaborate with other artists, hit that other artist up. Like I make sure that I not only just read on my DMs, but now I've been forcing myself to look at my requests because there will be a bunch of things in there and I've missed a lot of messages before. So I'm responding like 2 weeks later, like, thank you for listening to my music. I love you too. And it's like 3 weeks later, but it's still a response, right? It's still, networking. And then those people are hitting me back like, yo, I want to do a record with you. Can we do this? And they're from all over the world. So then that brings me into their territory as well. And then brings them into mine. So it really depends on what you're trying to do.
Yeah, joining online activations have been cool from what I've seen. People jumping on various showcases, the non-predatory ones, of course, but like the things that are, the collaborative ones where they're bringing like the DJs and the producers and I'm gonna say what it is, you know what I mean? But like there are some good showcases out there that really bring you to like some real legit people, and then there are the ones where it's the the other business. But it is what it is. It's up to you to kind of decipher which is which. But there are ways that you can network in those spaces. It's funny that somebody said without Clubhouse, because I'm not gonna lie, just because of how it's set up right now, I think it's actually for someone really trying to connect within the music industry, probably one of the best platforms because people right now are highly engaged before, the floodgates open and, it gets a little too crazy. As someone who, it's my job to build different, databases and stuff like that, I've been able to cover more ground in the United States in the last 2 months just because it's been put in one place than I have looking in a variety of places in a very long time. So I think if you know what you're going into these places looking for and really find a way not to get caught up in all the nonsense and like just go there for what you're there for, I think you'll be fine. It's when you start to, go off and do all the other stuff and now you've been there for 2 hours and now you've wasted 2 hours.
I just learned some stuff.
Where that's a lot like real life, Brandon, though. I've seen, you go to an event and sometimes you get stuck at the bar the whole night, but then other times you're, connecting the whole way. Do you guys mind if I answer that briefly?
No, go ahead. Of course.
Cool. So I forgot, I didn't even plug who we are at the beginning, but, if you go to LFOD.life, that's our website. Our whole goal is to connect the dots and build between folks and put people on. There's mad interviews, there's events, there's all sorts of stuff. But on top of that, every week we do LFOD Radio. It's on 91.5 FM in Boston. It streams online. We can play uncensored records. It's still FM, so hit us up. And I will say one thing we did throughout quarantine that I really enjoyed is I went live on Instagram weekly, and it was like an open thing. People could pop on, and I met artists all over the country coming on. And similar, they DM me after like, yo, I just sold an album in New Hampshire. Like, thanks, dude. Like, or like people on there would come on, see each other, and then they'd end up working together. And we're definitely bringing that back on YouTube within the next couple weeks to a month. So we're going to be creating just a space where people can tap in, meet folks, and it's going to be, legit. So if you want to connect with us, if you want to connect with any of these artists, any artists we rock with, feel free to reach out because we're definitely about the community side of things. And that's just LFOD.life, live free or die. So, all right. Thank you guys. It felt relevant. So back to the scheduled program here. There's a lot of artists with roots in Boston who are making national news right now, but not all of them developed a following locally before they became popular. We'll start with you here, CAEV. I'm curious how important you guys think their achievements are to the artistic community as a whole in Boston.
I think it's very important. It's just because when you go around these people and they're from Boston, people know where you're from. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just if they're from Boston, then it's a win for everybody. To me, like that's just how I see it. Like nobody who's where they're at don't deserve to be where they're at. Like I know those people. I've been in the studio with them and they work really hard at what they do, and I'm like, this nigga's nice. He really do this. You feel me? So it's like, it really like. I just feel like that it's a major win for everybody from Joiners, Stiz, Big, Beer, Millies. Like the more we win, the more it's just more attention to us. It's just more attention to us because everyone knows where we're from. Everyone knows where we're from. We all shout where we're from. Different Summers in my name. Everyone like it's just like the more we do I'll be at parties with Stiz and says like, yo, the more each one of us really pops up and does our own thing like that and becomes like a thing, like it's like a whole thing. I'm like, yeah, you're right. And it's just like that. I just feel like it's really important. Like whether you pop off at home, whether you leave to go pop off, the mission is get in the door. You feel me? Just get your foot in the door. It don't matter how you get in there. We're gonna get to the same party, different rides, but we in there, we cooling. You feel me? We in there. That's all that matters to me. You feel me? Like get to the party. That's all that matters. Like we get into the party. It's lit, you feel me? And that's really the plan in my eyes. I feel like we're slowly but surely infiltrating the building, and we're getting in there. We're getting in there. Everyone's finding their way in. You feel me? Some people are taking hands in. Some people are sneaking people in the back. Some people are kicking down the front door. Some people are jumping through windows. But as long as we all in there, that's all that matters to me. I'm like, I see people where we from all the time in different places I go, and like people really just trying to get it. Like whether it be at home, whether they leave the state, it doesn't matter. Like, just get it. Just get to it. Like, that's the mission. You feel me? We all come from the same stuff, and we know where we coming from. So it's like, and none of us had it easy. So it's like, yo, let's go. Let's get it. Time. You feel me? When Poppy went in the first time, my friend J.O., he came out. He said, yo, you still doing this? He said, yo, you're not the only one waiting on you. You know that, right? And that kind of really put something in my head. I'm like, yo, he's right. Like, yo, like this really, it's like, you really got to get to it. So it's like, shout out to everyone doing their thing from like locally to nationally to internationally, because that's what we need, the powers and numbers, you feel me? So like the more we're spreading out with this Boston seed, like the better. That's how I feel personally. Like I don't think we can go wrong with people popping off where we from, no matter where they're from, because you from where you from. That's how it is. You from where you from. No matter what you try to do, no matter what you try to shake, no matter how many tattoos I put on my face, I'm still from Dorchester. Like I'm still like Dorchester kid, you feel me? No matter how much Rockstar kid, I still went to a Boston public school, you feel me? So like, no matter what you do, you from where you from. So none of that, it all matters and it doesn't matter at the same time. It's like just be popping, like literally. That's how I feel.
Heard. Anybody want to chime in?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
So yeah,
I went on a tangent. I'm sorry.
So I'll reframe it a bit. So we do see artists doing a lot, national artists from Boston. How much weight should individual artists be putting on it? And does let's say Bia's come up a few times. Bia does well. Does that help the scene as a whole? Should a local artist be like, oh, this is good, like things are going to open up more? Or is it a little more, you're kind of on your own?
Possibly.
I mean, I think it's always good. I mean, I think it's always good to build an ecosystem, not just for artists, but for everyone, because most of the people that's going to be surrounding them are people that are from Boston, whether they're producers, whether they're videographers, because the first people that are going to support you are the people that are going to be from home. And the people that you're going to feel most comfortable with are going to be those that were with you when you started to move, even if your audience is on the other side of the planet. So the more that we can provide jobs for people, I think the more that maybe Boston will see us as more valuable, because we're then essentially providing salaries for people because we're successful. So we don't really need to kind of hone in on so much of like the resources here because we're already building our own ecosystem in various places. So I think the more that we can continue to build that, regardless if our audience is here or not, like I think majority of Latrell's audience is more West Coast than it is Boston, but at the same time, like, you know that he's from here. So either way, there's still going to be an ecosystem that still streams through Boston where he can employ people here. And I think that that's the most important thing to realize. It's not just the artists, it's the creatives that come with those artists. And those creatives are essentially going to have roots here as well. So I think the more that we can focus on that, building an ecosystem, instead of just, you know, obviously thinking about individual people, I think is more important.
I think some people get somewhat annoyed when they feel like these artists that they look at that made it don't do more or bring more back. But I think people don't necessarily understand that, like, they don't know the situations of these people, and they don't realize that sometimes you got to tighten your ship in order to provide a sound opportunity. You know, so it's like, yeah, you could sign your deal and try to put everybody on in your first week, but how about, you know, solidifying yourself in this industry and creating something really, really concrete so that when you do have the opportunity to give back, it's something that actually provides, you know, something sound versus just an idea. You know, I think people get so mad, like, oh, that person's not holding this down or not doing that. It's like, well, you know, it's not like you can just snap your fingers and just automatically have this, you know, long-term career that's set in all these ways. There's a lot of moving parts, and you don't know the size of their team. You don't know if it's them and one or two other people. You don't know if they have this massive, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know if they're in a position to do all these things that we try to put on them for not bringing back to the city. You know what I mean? And I think that what we should really take from it is that they did make it. As they grow, it puts more eyes on this market. And realistically, a lot of them really did work really hard. So instead of complaining, emulate. You know, if they rolled up their sleeves and they found a way to make it work, then that proves that it's not impossible and you can do the same. You may not have to do it the way they did it, but everybody has a way to make it happen.
I feel like hope should be the biggest thing anyone could take away from that, honestly. Hope, like, yo, it could be done. Like, he did it, I could do it too. And that's just my attitude about everything. I played Division I football before I did this. Like, and that's been my attitude. Like, yo, I can do this. So, like, more than anything, I feel like that seed of hope should be anything that you should grab onto as an artist. Like, yo, he could do it, I could do it. She could do it, I could do it. They did it, we could do it. You feel me? Like, and I feel like if you just have that attitude, you know, City of Champions, you feel me? Let's get to it. That's what we do here. We go to work. We call it people, you know? Like, that's just my attitude towards it. Like, hope. That's the biggest thing. When Stiz was coming up, that was the biggest thing that I was like, oh my God, like, this just sound like hope to me. It sounded like real actual hope. Like, yo, like, hope. I'm like, yeah, like, all right, now just grab onto those frequencies, like, you know, like, hope. Like, that's the only thing that you should, from an artist to artist, that's the only thing you should focus on when thinking about another artist is inspiration. That's the only thing you should ever try to grab from another artist is inspiration, like, in my personal opinion.
Yeah. Brandie, mostly agree?
Yeah, like, I think everything that everyone said is on point. I just never really understood, like, being mad at someone that blew up that reps Boston. So I'm like, the more people from here that do break out on a national stage, the bigger the door gets and the easier it becomes for all of us to walk through it. So a win for someone from Boston, to me, is a win for the whole city. That's really it.
Literally.
So I'm going to skip ahead. You and Brandon kind of said something similar. And this was something, it comes to me every now and then, and I have my own opinions on it. But, like, people do sometimes, you know, certain artists makes it, and then you hear people get frustrated if they're not vocal enough or not shining a light. Whether or not you think that artist has a responsibility, do you have any insight into, like, why we're even having these conversations and, like, how we can just move past that convo?
I mean, I think that people have to step back and have a conversation with themselves about what they're not seeing within themselves that they're trying to reflect on another person. That seems a little bit more internal than external in a way. Like, I understand people's frustrations, but I think what CAEV said, I think that, and what Brandon said, like, the things that you should be asking from artists is how can they provide more inspiration for you to be able to do what you need to do. Seeing somebody excel should be able to push you to want to get to a different level as well. If you're asking something from an artist, I think sometimes you have to ask yourself why. Like, that's kind of weird. Like, why are you asking someone to fulfill something within yourself that's missing? That's a self-fulfillment that you need to figure out. So I think, industry is really hard, and this industry is really, really hard. And people may think that mental health and self-care is just some words that are written on a chalkboard, but that stuff really messes with you. Failure is part of the industry. It sucks for everyone at every single level. Like, every level. There's artists going through it right now that are stuck in labels who can't release any music for fans they love. And that stuff hurts them as much as the indie artists that can't release any music because they're battling with themselves. So you have to look within yourselves and see what you're not getting from yourself that you're trying to portray on another artist. That other artist has bills just like everybody else. You're not any different.
Facts, yeah. I agree 1,000%.
Right. So, yeah, exactly. So, last thing on that, I was gonna ask if people think regional rap even matters anymore with everything happening online. It sounds like you guys feel like it does overall still, but along that line, so without asking anything for the artist, if you are somebody who is playing an infrastructure role or doing something else behind the scenes, what is the best way, like, you can as a whole, like, leverage that artist's success without, they just do their thing, and like, how can you leverage that in a way that it is beneficial for everybody without having to ask extra from them or being predatory, if there is an answer to that?
I feel like, honestly, organic, just keep it organic. Like, like, vibes don't lie. I hate to keep it so basic and so umbrella-like, so vague, but like, Dr. Dre said he maneuvered his whole career based off of feelings. If it felt right, he did it. If it didn't feel right, he didn't do it. And I feel like I operate the same way, like, just organic vibes. If you just keep it organic and keep it genuine, like, you know what I'm saying? You might be the devil in someone else's story and the hero in someone else's story, but as long as you did you in the end, you're gonna be cool. So like, I feel like that's the best way to go about that. Just keep it organic at all times. You feel me? At all times, just keep the process organic, and like, as long as you keep it like that, I feel like things like end up cool. Things tend to play out the way they're supposed to play out anyway. So without getting too like hippie-ish or anything.
Yeah, and I would see if some people, like, if you see like different people posting like other rappers' music, like, I'd be like, okay, well, if they seem to be following the Boston scene, let me shoot them some music to see that there's other artists here too. So, you could pick up on different people's resources. It's just how you hustle. So, I mean, like, at the end of the day, like, if you see that there's certain people or commentators or people with playlists that are posting Boston music and they're seeing that there's something happening here, then shoot your music and make sure that you highlight that you're from Boston too. Like, there's different ways to excel on stuff like that, but as long as you keep it organic and strategic, I think that it's not like it's a hard game. Like, you just got to pay attention.
Yeah, thanks.
I think a lot of times people also skip steps, which is, it's like you have to really start from the bottom. Like, pre-COVID, like, I did shows where there was 2 people in the room, and I went and I did the same show that I did when I released Late Bloomer. And I had the venue out in Somerville. So it's like, you can't skip steps. It's like, yeah, you could reach out to everyone, but is your song mixed correctly? Does it sound good? Like, is this your best possible work? Those are the things that really come first, like mastering your craft, mastering your stage presence, making sure your mixes are correct and sound really crisp and clear. Because, when I get a mix back, I bump it in the whip. If it don't sound good in my car, that's not the mix.
Yeah,
period. Like, it have to sound good, that's like from the 90s, I guess, being a 90s kid. Like, if it don't sound good in the car, that's like the record. You know what I mean? So make sure that you do lay your foundation first and then hustle. Because it's either people don't lay their foundation or and skip right to hustling, or they only lay the foundation and do no hustling. Like, you have to do both. And if you're not committed to doing both, if you're someone that's like, yo, I just need to be an artist, then you have to have a strong team to hold that down.
I wanted to piggyback off something Jessica said, which was when it was the part about servicing the music and like going after people who are supporting Boston music. Avoid the finesse and build on the relationship.
Yeah,
because people in media and a lot of other things, they're tired of being spoken at a certain way, tired of being told what to do. You know what I mean? Like right now, people are proactively wanting to cover Boston music more than they ever have. So we want to keep them happy. So when you start getting disrespectful and annoying and all of that, all that coverage starts to diminish. So we need to make sure that we are like treating people with the utmost respect, because we are getting what we want. Like we are legit getting what we want, and it's only growing. So the more that we nurture that, the better it'll be.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hard. I'm with all that. All right, Brandie, this one's for you specifically. So at the beginning of all this, well, not all this. So June was an especially tumultuous time this year, and you came on and did a panel with us about artistry and activism and what that meant. And I think you're someone who has thought about this and is ready to talk about it. There was a big movement within the industry like that same week about addressing issues of racism. There was a blackout. A Boston label got canceled. Have you actually seen any changes transpire on the level you operate at, or is this more of a performance from your point of view?
I think it's like a mixture of both. I think I've seen a lot of things where you could tell, like we talked about being organic. And I think with activism, it's the same thing. If you're doing it for clout, people could tell, whether that's a corporation or whether that's an artist that's like, oh, this is a hot thing right now, let me make a Black Lives Matter song. When it's fraudulent, it's fraudulent. We can all tell. So I think that we've seen those things, but I also think behind the scenes that people are also having conversations that we have never had before about institutions, about people that operate in the city, and being like, maybe that ain't it. Maybe we can go over here and very much be more independent, be more Black owned, be more of these things. I see a lot of that more like, how do we create our own version of this institution, but one that isn't predatory, one that serves us and serves our community? How do we do that? And I see a lot more of those conversations. I see a lot more people being like, I started, I got my paperwork together so I could start my record label and sign myself. Fine. You know what I mean? So I never had a thought to do that before, but it got to a point where, I was blessed to be a recipient of the lab grant. So I had a lot of money, and I was like, well, I can't just put this in my personal account. What am I going to do? So, it really pushes, and I think that really pushes a lot of us. I've seen a lot of people that I know in the city make a lot of power moves, make a lot of bossed up moves that I think we might not have had the courage to make if a lot of things hadn't gotten exposed the way that they did.
And anybody else who wants to add to that, by all means.
I mean, I think you definitely saw the people who were legit wanting some levels of change, and the people who were just, riding the wave and trying to take advantage of all the publicity, whether it be the companies and stuff like that. But I mean, at least on my side, I definitely have seen a lot more people who either were not hip to a lot of things a little bit more, have a little bit more open eyes and have like moved differently in their business practices, and like, down to like parts of like who they hire, or like the types of companies that they hire and stuff like that, or where they put their corporate dollars into. So I've seen things on that level, but then I've also seen the other side where it's like, for the whole summer, certain people were talking about it, and then now they haven't mentioned the peep or had any level of, moves or event or anything around it, since the holidays or whatever, you know what I mean? So it's like, you do realistically see who's in it for what, and I just think that it's cool for us to focus on the wins, because we're always going to have more work to do. So, let's just, keep doing what we got to.
I mean, I think that it was just a little bit of both. And just piggybacking off of what Brandie said, like, I love like that they give out lab grants and stuff, but I think we won't see like the core aspect of the changes until COVID's over. Like, are they still going to be restricting hip hop? Like, the lab grants are great, but then if artists can't perform at venues, like, I don't necessarily know what we're, essentially using the lab grants for. If you're not providing more opportunities for artists to stay in Boston, like, what are they for? You're not providing better housing for artists in the city, especially those of color. then how is that helping? You're still tearing down, Harriet Tubman building. Like, you're still doing everything essentially that's not in the right way of going towards, a systematic change. So if you're not going that way still, then we're still isolated. You're just appearing a little bit more shinier to people who are looking for change. And I think sometimes Boston says that, they're liberal and they're in the forefront, but we're still having that systematic racism that they still will not let go of. And, although I've seen a lot of companies be pro whatever, like, at the same forefront, I've seen a lot of them, donate money to the Trump campaign. So it's like, what are you trying to tell us right now? That's a little bit of confusing. So I do think that there's a lot of steps forward, but, I do think that activism seemed to be a trend in a way to some, especially with the blackout. I didn't really understand that, but I think some people did. I didn't get it, but, at least, there was conversations made.
I think there was a lot of cross wires on that whole, what the meaning of that was supposed to be. I think the intentions for what it was supposed to be were sincere, but I think once it became pop culture, it just really killed it. Because if it was what it was supposed to be, which was, a day of not promoting what you're doing and really just having a shutdown of what the things were, versus like finding all these other meanings, but because we, will share information first and not look into it sometimes, that message just got completely jumbled. So it's just, it was a shame to see. I think it could have been something that really would have been effective had everybody been on the same page, but it was not, effectively coordinated.
I don't supposed to square that day.
I don't know if this exactly like answers the question, but I feel like there needs to be more like times and places for like Black people to celebrate Black culture in Boston without it being seen as a threat. Like, I feel like that is a big part that needs to exist. Like that's totally lacking in Boston. Like, it's a place where Black people can celebrate Black culture and for it to not be like heavily policed. I just feel like even the heavily policed vibe, like that just creates a tension that doesn't need to be there. Like, it's just like Black culture is like in Boston, to me, growing up there, Dorchester kid, it just seems like it's been frowned upon like my whole life. So like even the Caribbean Festival got canceled last year, and we seen St. Patrick's Day go on without a breeze, and we all got upset. You feel me? So it's like I just feel like that just needs to exist more. Like, just like Black culture needs to be celebrated more. Maybe within that, like even like, so we're like a heavy Caribbean Afro vibe in the Northeast in Boston, like, but you don't hear that within even in our music. You feel me? We don't even have that sound in our music. It's not even prevalent in our music. So I was just like, I feel like we had that chance to just celebrate that more and just be ourselves. Like, maybe we would have a Boston sound that already by now, like a stuck Boston sound. Like, yo, this is our sound. Like, who knows? I just feel like we just need that space just to be ourselves and celebrate our own culture without it being seen as a threat. So I think that would be like a big plus just to the culture overall if we could just get that, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, like, just speaking of what you said, I mean, like, we had the hip hop concert and they canceled it just after, like, a group of fans rushed Wiz Khalifa. And it was like, but for like St. Patrick's Day, there'd be like, 3,000 fights and everybody's just like, well, it is what it is. That's what
they be like,
do.
Black people ain't even allowed down here. Please be like, if you Black, don't come down here.
Right. So like, I don't understand that. Right. So they keep taking things away from us. So it just feels like we're not included. And then given the lab grant, I feel it's like, well, here's $10,000, leave us alone. But you guys can't perform anywhere. And if you do, we're just gonna limit it, or you're gonna be searched to death. Inappropriately, like that stuff's not cool. Like people touching your bra and stuff. Like that's weird. That only happens at hip hop concerts.
Yeah,
they're very, very extra on the hip hop out here. I moved to Massachusetts in 2000, and man, was that a rude awakening for the extraness of going in something as simple as even a nightclub. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy.
Yeah, real masshole stuff.
I appreciate you guys giving like solutions too, and to push it forward. And we're running sort of down on time. I wanted Jess and Jess, you had a great answer. We talked about this last year. Actually, it was interesting to see some of the stuff play out, and have like a national reckoning. But we did talk about some of this stuff. So if people want more on that, check out last year's panel. And I appreciate have you seen a little bit of progress? We've seen a little progress, but there's a lot more for folks to do. And I think that's a good point. Like when we open back up, like what's it really going to look like? Because it's easy to, type something. And on a similar note, before we get out of here, so this is a space for growth, right? We want to have this conversation in public. People can watch it. They can take things away from it, whatever that may be. What is something that you guys think everyone tuned in, what's something like one thing they could do right now to make a difference? We can talk about both things. One, in a like a real meaningful way on that last topic when it comes to like supporting Black culture, Black arts, but also just like the hip hop scene out here. Like if they believe in it, they want to see it prosper. What's one thing they can do right now that will make a difference?
I would say share people's work. Share. If you like someone, don't like them on the low. Like excuse my language, but that whole term sucking dick, that shit has to die. That doesn't exist in other places. I've been to other places and those artists share each other's work and they move like that. And like, I just feel like that, like that's just how that we just have to share the work, show love. That's what it is. On my end, that's what I think that we could do better. Just like share each other's work, share it. Like just get the share, follow each other, share. Like
yeah, and some people might not know this, but if you're on Instagram and you see a post and you do not like it, you literally get that post crunched in their algorithm and they show it to less people. So like the least you can do is double tap when you see something because you're actively hurting somebody if you don't interact.
I mean, I think for companies out here, especially like if you support Black artists, then like, what does that mean? Like, are you going to open up your place of space for a performance? Are you going to provide money for that artist? Are you going to, I mean, besides like, sharing the stuff, like what are you going to do to make sure that that artist is able to eat the next day? Like, what are you going to do for that artist to gain another fan the next day? Like, I feel like sometimes, especially for Boston companies, like they do the bare minimum and think that the return on investment is people flocking to that business because they're doing the bare minimum. And we got to demand more from these people. Like if we're giving you Black excellence, then you guys have to return something for us so we can live for the next day. Because right now, like with venues shrinking here, like if you want more artists to be here and want an arts community, there has to be more done than the bare minimum.
Facts.
I would say stop just supporting cisgender straight men. It's old. It's old. There's more of us out here than that. And I think it's lazy. Just being honest. When you have a show, when you have a playlist and it's all straight cisgender men, to me, you're not a real hip hop head and you're lazy. There's so many other people out here, and I think that's something that makes Boston very special. So when people talk about Boston not popping, but they don't play female rappers, they don't play our queer rappers, like that's what you're missing out on, and that's what makes the city special, is that we have all these amazing artists that work together, that vibe together. So do better and support everybody.
No, I definitely agree with all of those. I think one thing that I usually bring up in our previous one, so broken record, is people really should spend a lot of time learning the market. Learn what's here, because we're only getting more and more things here, and we're not as limited as people kind of portray. So I think people, before they start coming out and complaining about what we don't have and what we need and what needs to happen or this, that, and the third, learn what's here, because there might be a lot of things you don't even know exist here, and there might be things that people, things that are happening here that you may not realize that are, more relevant to you than you think. We can't always just be in this place of complaining. We also got to be, accountability is a real big thing. We have to hold ourselves to a standard of just operating like any other business. You know what I mean? Like farmers hold farmers accountable. Accountants hold accountants accountable. You know what I mean? Like we got to hold, ourselves accountable for the things that we're not doing. And then we also have to hold the powers that be accountable too. Like if you see publications spreading stuff that you don't think necessarily paints us in a good fashion, say something. Like don't let that wave, just go. Don't let people just go out here and move, especially when they speaking on our culture and they probably aren't from it. You know what I mean? Like, let's let them know. You know what I mean? Like, this is our culture. We dictate this. You don't tell us how this goes. You know, so if they're doing something that we don't agree with, we need to be the ones to say something and not just like let it go because you don't want to like make them annoyed. They need to know that they're doing something wrong. I think that once they realize that we do care about how we're portrayed and, you know, we do care about how Boston's overall, you know, view is around the country, we need to have a level of control over that.
Word. Yo, I appreciate y'all doing this tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time to have this convo because it's definitely
appreciate you having us.
And it's a step in like that research that you're talking about because you know, if you do have that negative attitude, it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling thing, and like the next man, like or woman or whoever might be like, oh, well, I didn't make it because no one makes it here. No one helps people here. No one, and it just becomes a thing. And it doesn't need to be that way. And it's not that way, honestly, you know. So thank you guys. I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate you guys chopping it up. We got to shout out WBUR, Ari, and Amelia were huge putting this together. It helped me get my notes right and, you know, make sure we're giving the best convo we can for everybody. Bringing it to a larger stage. Shout out the Boston Compass newspaper, Newbury Comics, the Record Co. If you want to tap in with us, just LFOD.life, head over there. A lot of these artists we've done things with in the past. Some we'll be doing with in the future. Y'all let us know how we can help. And if you want to get involved, we're looking to build as well with like either writers, DJs, stuff like that. So hit us up. Like, you know, we could use more people behind the scenes than necessarily in front of them these days. So let's go. Anything that seems good, right, guys? Like we're good. 2021 is going to be so yeah, thank you. I guess they're going to turn it off on us when it's finished.